So I love the Christmas season. I always have. I love the decorations and the lights and the warmth of family and friends. I have so many fond childhood memories, making all the preparations, creating decorations with my older siblings, how they taught me to drape single pieces of silver tinsel on the tree, one at a time, instead of throwing a bunch of it at the tree in my artless and impatient way. For me, Christmas was a time of great anticipation. The weeks of waiting, barely able to contain myself at times, longing so breathlessly for the day to finally come. You may know this time of waiting, this period we are now in, is known as Advent, and it includes 4 Sundays before Christmas. While the Advent season isn't observed these days in most Unitarian Universalist congregations, I feel that the idea of Advent may actually have some great deal of value and meaning for us this year. Because as we head into the deepest, darkest time of year, as we anticipate the changes that are sure to come in 2026, I think the time between now and the holiday is a good time to pause, to take stock, to prepare our hearts day by day for the spiritual messages of peace, joy, love, and hope that are inherent in the Christmas season, as those who have gone before us have done for millennia. So I'm going to tell you the gospel story, a little bit of it. As it goes, it was early spring that the angel Gabriel came to Mary and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you." Mary, of course, was taken aback at this, but the angel then said, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will be with child and give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus." And he told her that her son would be called Lord and rule on the throne. And Mary replied, "How will this be, since I am a young woman?" And the angel answered, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One will be born, will be called the Son of God." Mary then traveled to Judea to visit her cousin Elizabeth, who was pregnant with the child who would become John the Baptist. And she tells her cousin what has happened. Elizabeth exclaims that Mary is blessed and that the fruit of her womb is also blessed. Mary responds by singing a hymn that announces the arrival of God's kingdom on earth. This hymn, which is known by some as Mary's Song, is also called the Magnificat, and it says in part that God hath scattered the proud in the imagination of their hearts. He hath put down the mighty from their seat, hath exalted the humble and meek. He hath filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he hath sent away empty. He hath put down the mighty from their seat, and hath exalted the humble and meek. He hath filled the hungry with good things, and the rich he hath sent empty away. Unitarian Universalist minister Laura Dobson described this hymn as a courageous and subversive song of praise. She also wrote, "This song of Mary is the oldest Advent hymn. It is the most passionate, most vehement, one might almost say revolutionary Advent hymn ever sung. It is not the gentle, sweet, dreamy Mary that we so often see portrayed in pictures, but a passionate, powerful, proud, enthusiastic Mary who speaks here a hard, strong, uncompromising song of bringing down rulers from their thrones and humbling the lords of this world, of God's power and the powerlessness of men. Reverend Dobson reminds us that in the time of Jesus, Mary's homeland was occupied by the Roman Empire, a brutal military regime. Both the Roman and Jewish cultures were deeply patriarchal. This was not a safe place for Mary or her baby, even within her own community. It must have taken great courage for Mary to say yes to what God asked of her. And Dobson cites how the Magnificat has inspired people in modern times during periods of harsh oppression. She wrote, Mary's words were considered so subversive that they were banned by at least 3 oppressive regimes. During the British occupation of India, the authorities banned the recitation of the Magnificat at evensong. In the 1970s Argentina, the mothers of the disappeared posted the words of Mary's song in the Capitol Plaza, prompting the military junta to ban its public display. In 1980s Guatemala, Mary's song inspired the poor to believe that change was possible through nonviolent resistance, and their government banned its public recitation. Whether you believe in the Christmas story or not, words and ideas have power. Advent's historical beginning is hazy at best, yet it is certain that it existed as early as the year 480 and was codified by the Council of Tours in France in 567. Monks were ordered to fast every day in the month of December until Christmas, and that fasting probably meant avoiding meat and eating one simple meal a day. Sometimes the Advent season is likened to Lent, when converts to Christianity had a time of penitence leading up to Easter when they would be baptized. Advent would also lead up to baptism, one that occurred on January 6th, the 12th day after Christmas, known as Epiphany, when it is said that the wise kings from the east arrived at the manger where Jesus was born. Unfortunately, that date is also now associated with the tragic day in U.S. history. As I said, Advent includes 4 Sundays. On the first Sunday, the readings in the Catholic Church are about the second coming of Christ. On the second and third, they focus on the preaching of John the Baptist, who, as they say, came to prepare the way of the Lord. On the fourth and final Sunday, it's about Mary and Joseph, leading up to the birth of Jesus, which is then, of course, celebrated on Christmas Day. And so during these weeks, we find ourselves in the midst of a time of waiting, a season of anticipation. But if we look around us today, at today's world, we also can't help but see it as a time of great injustice, widespread suffering, astonishing levels of indifference. So it seems to me that we would be wise to use this time to ponder our present and our imminent future, to take stock of where we are and where we would prefer to go. And as we do, perhaps we can also formulate a New Year's resolution, a New Year's vision that gives us hope of moving forward on meaningful, positive path for all of us. Here's what the Reverend Dr. William Barber, founding director of the Center of Public Theology and Public Policy at Yale Divinity School, said about this year's Advent season. Advent's wisdom seems especially needed at the end of 2025 in the United States of America. The worst-case scenario that many experts on authoritarianism warned us about has become our reality at an astonishing pace. Project 2025 laid out a detailed plan for a disciplined dismantling of public institutions. It has been accelerated by the wrecking ball, both literal and figurative, of a regime that insists it is not accountable to Congress, to the courts, to the media, or to the people. Reverend Barber reminds us that ancient King Herod ordered the execution of young children in order to dismantle the potential threat of a challenger. Remarkably, Barber says, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to imagine this as plausible news story this year. He adds, we watch and wait this Advent in a moment not unlike the original context of the Christmas story. In a moral moment like this, we realize why our faith traditions are born out of moments of civilizational crisis. The stories passed down to us bear wisdom of how to hold on to our humanity, especially in times like these. Our religious traditions offer real and practical resources for people who are trying to survive an authoritarian regime. End quote. I read historian professor Heather Cox Richardson letters from an American almost every morning, and I listen to her Politics Chat podcast. She intended these daily chronicles of our nation's current events as a document for future historians. However, they turned out to be quite popular in the present. She remarks on a regular basis about how this time in our nation reminds her so much of her specialty, the 1850s, when things were coming to a head before the Civil War. Professor Richardson says that if we are to avoid such a calamity this time around, that there are some things that we have to do. She reminds us that the current administration is very unpopular and actually very weak, though they try to project the appearance of strength. Therefore, we must actively advocate for a better future for our country, and we must use whatever tools and abilities we have. So if you are a writer, she says, then write about what's going on in your world, in your community. If you are on social media, then document what you see and post your views. If you are talking to your neighbors, are you good at that? Then work toward building a network and providing the glue that holds people together. If your skill and drive is to care for the elderly or support those who have no home or shelter or mentor young people, do that. And as you do that thing, remember that it's not enough to just resist destruction or to hold it at bay. In these times, we need to articulate and form a consensus around a positive vision of the future. Because I feel that despite the onslaught of dire pronouncements coming from the White House, the beginning of something new is just around the corner. And I wonder if you feel it as well. And that means that now is the time to imagine. Now is the time to gestate new ideas and cultivate strategies. new ideas with substance, things that will make a lasting difference. As we honor this season and contemplate the unfolding of our future, let us wait now in joyful hope, not in fear. When we have hope, we can be fully alive and imagine and move toward a beautiful future. And let us also make use of these days and this season to prepare, to strengthen ourselves, even as we also make holiday preparations in our homes and in our church. Because Advent need not be a season of passively waiting. Indeed, as the Christmas story tells us, Mary's radical vision of the undoing of the status quo tells us this can be a time for liberation, a time when peace, joy, hope, and love can rise from the ashes. Let us live into that kind of waiting. Let us experience the mysterious wonder of what can be, born from a deep, abiding yes, one that's rooted in relationship, in human need, and authentic community. As the angel Gabriel reassured Mary, be not afraid. During this time of preparation, we can search for inner strength, and we can find it, so that we can then act out of love whenever and wherever we are called upon. It's up to us to act from love, not from anxiety, not from fear, as we await the chance to fulfill a promise, the promise that we've made to each other and to our children, that we will create for them and for each other a peaceful, fair, and free world. Because the time is urgent. The days are precious and short. I recently read a piece called An Advent for Unitarian Universalists, and I paraphrase it here. We were not born into Jesus' world. We have been born into the 21st century United States of America. What are we blessed to see and experience at this time? What wondrous, noteworthy, mysterious things are we called to do in our lives? What thing of worth will we leave behind? What, like John the Baptist, are we preparing a way for? If not for Jesus' coming, then perhaps for the arrival of another life, maybe even our own, one lived in compassion toward our neighbors and devoted to ridding the world of oppression and injustice. On earth, peace and goodwill to all. So may it be.